Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I am doing a video I've been waiting to do for a little bit. I worked all night on this last night, all night on my rankings and all that, and it is a mock draft simulation where I actually have teams. I went on Tankathon. I did the thing with the thing where the thing tells me who's drafting where and all that, and it's great. So obviously you see the results now. New Jersey, they won the draft lottery. Columbus actually got second, and not the Columbus-Chicago pick that's protected, but the Columbus pick that's actually Columbus's. So what a W there for Columbus. And yeah, so no other really big things in the results for the draft lottery. And by the way, I should probably mention that numbers 17 through 20 weren't in the draft lottery. Those are just Tankathon's next 4 teams after that, because I want to do 20 players. So I had to sort of get a few more teams to continue the simulation. But without further ado, let's get into the first overall pick, starting with the New Jersey Devils. So congratulations, New Jersey, winning another draft lottery after they got Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. And this is where the people definitely start to complain. New Jersey, with the first overall pick, I think that New Jersey this year will draft centerman Shane Wright. Shane Wright in 33 games has 16 goals, 29 assists for 45 points this season in the OHL. That honestly has been a little bit of a disappointment. I had high expectations coming into the season after his great rookie season in OHL. And honestly, I was fringe about putting him here. I was so close to knock him down after a below average World Junior performance and just not a great season for him compared to expectations. But he's been better recently, and I just couldn't do it. I know that if a team was still drafting first overall right now, they would definitely pick Shane Wright. So I couldn't drop him out. He still has that star potential with him, and I couldn't do it. At number 2, I think the Columbus Blue Jackets will select centerman from the WHL, Matthew Savoie. Matthew Savoie is a player who I think is more of that guy's going to be good. Shane Wright is more of a risk, I think, although he has superstar potential, where Savoie I just think is a very good centerman. Matthew Savoie in 38 games has 19 goals, 36 assists for 55 points in the WHL. He is on the smaller side. He's only 5'9", which is pretty small for a player, but I just think he's just great potential. At one point, he was leading the WHL in points. He looks like a really good power play guy, and I think this is, despite Columbus drafting so many centers already, they got 2 picks in this draft, and with their first one, they definitely go with best player available. And in my opinion, at this point, it would be Matthew Savoie. But moving on to 3rd overall, and I might have a little bit of a surprise here, but 3rd is Montreal, according to Tankathon. And for Montreal, I thought that they would switch it up and go with defenseman from the Slovakia League, Simon NEMEC. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. It's a confusing name to pronounce, but he is a defenseman, like I said, from the Slovakia League. In 32 games, he has 1 goal, 22 assists for 23 points. And he has actually moved up 5 spots since the last time I did a mock draft, which was actually around Christmas, so about 2 months ago. Since I did that last mock draft where he was number 8, his offensive game has just taken a step up. He's been fantastic offensively and has really shown me that offensive potential that you want to see out of a top draft pick. And in my opinion, he is the best defenseman in his draft class as of right now, I believe. Moving on to number 4, a team that I don't even know where they're going to play next season, Arizona, and I think that they will draft centerman Logan Cooley from the USDP. With me having Simon NEMEC 3rd, I think that there's no doubt that Arizona will take Logan Cooley. They won't let him pass their spot. Logan Cooley in 29 games has 15 goals, 26 assists for 41 points. He's moved up 2 spots since last time, so I wasn't as sold on Logan Cooley as most people are. But since then, I've really come to like him. His offensive totals have proved me wrong. He's just very effective, dynamic player who I think will one day be a great player in the NHL and is a great pick by Arizona if they manage to get him at 4th. However, the way that I think the draft will go, I think he'll go 2nd or 3rd, but this is just my rankings. And if he does go to 4th, I have no doubt that Arizona will take him. At number 5, the Buffalo Sabres, I have them picking right winger from the Liga, JOAKIM KEMELL. JOAKIM KEMELL at this point is becoming a bit of a risky pick because his numbers, he has 18 points in 25 games and 12 goals in the Liga, very good numbers. But he's been so dry lately. He had such a good start, over a point per game. I had him at 2nd at one point, then I had him at 4th last time, which is why he's moved down 1 spot, so he's slowly moving down. He could be down more next time. but he's just on a cold streak. He didn't look good in the World Juniors, really. Hasn't looked good in the Liga lately, so he's got to pick things up, but I still think he's a top 5 pick as of right now. In Buffalo, a team that needs a good offensive prospect, like they already have some good ones, like Jack Quinn in my head. I don't know, there's some more, but with them drafting Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin, I think they're going to go for a forward here, and I think Joakim KEMELL is a pick that could for sure be made. And honestly, I think it's a solid one. I still think he has that potential. I just think he's having a very rough patch right now, and I do believe he will get out of it, though. I do believe. Seattle, number 6, their second draft ever. They get number 6, and I think that they will draft centerman Jonathan LEKKERIMAKI from the SHL. Jonathan LEKKERIMAKI has 6 points, 4 goals in 15 games in the SHL, which is very impressive, not only taking into account his very impressive totals in the Junior 20 National League, where he's almost a point per game with 35 points in 26 games as well. Or almost a goal per game, 20 goals in 26 games. And he's actually moved up a whole 12 spots for me since the last time I did this ranking. It's funny, because in the comments last time, some guy say that, man, you have like LEKKERIMAKI way too low, and I don't think that I'd take like that opinion. I made this my opinion. I don't look at other rankings, and you know what? I'll give it to him. He was right, because I looked at him again since last time, and I've moved him up a lot. I really like LEKKERIMAKI, and I think that he's worthy of a top 6 pick, especially for Seattle and a team that needs offense and defense. They need everything, and goaltending. So that's usually how it works with really bad teams, though. But I think they'd really like Jonathan LEKKERIMAKI. But moving on to number 7, which is the Ottawa Senators pick. And with their pick, I think they switch it up, go for a defenseman this time. I think they're in need of a defensive prospect. And with this pick, I think they go for a defenseman from the WHL, Denton MATEYCHUK. Denton MATEYCHUK, maybe pronouncing that name wrong, sorry if I am. In 42 games, has 8 goals, 32 assists for 40 points. Almost a point per game in the WHL. He's been very impressive this year. And I actually didn't have him on my rankings last time. I remember writing him down, and I think he just missed the cut. But he definitely made it this time. I was very impressed with his point totals. And when you're drafting a guy early in the draft, I'm of the belief that the guy you draft should have offensive potential. I don't think you're drafting a guy to become a defensive defenseman, but I think you should be drafting a guy to have that offensive potential, and I think MATEYCHUK has that offensive potential with his 8 goals and nearly a point per game in the WHL. So I think Ottawa, after messing up their first round pick last year, will make what I believe to be a good pick and add a defenseman to their prospect pool, and a very good defenseman at that. Moving on to the 8th overall pick, which is the Philadelphia Flyers. And with their pick, I actually think they're going to take a little bit of a risk here, going with center, listed as a center right winger from the Liga, Brad Lambert. Brad Lambert, in 31 games in the Liga, only has 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. He actually, as you noticed, isn't on my list last time, but what helped move him up was his World Juniors performance, where he put up 1 goal, 4 assists for 5 points in only 2 games. He looked dominant out there. He looked very good. And Philadelphia, for some reason, it feels like a fit to me. It feels like Brad Lambert would fit in there. I don't know what it is. It just feels like that's what's going to happen. It's a feeling. I got that feeling in my bones. You know what song I'm talking about. But no, he's new on this list. Brad Lambert's, I have faith in him now because of that whole World Junior stint. I believe that he can become a great player. And you got to love how he's physical as well. And he's a bigger dude. So I don't know why. It's just Philadelphia feels like a good fit for him. At number 9 is once again Columbus with the Chicago pick. That's a rough one, Chicago. At least you got Seth Jones at $9.5 million for the next 8 years, though, right? But anyway, I think that Columbus, after picking up a lot of centers, is going to switch up the position a little bit and go for a defenseman. And I think they'll go for a defenseman from the OHL, Pavel Mintyukov. Pavel Mintyukov, in 38 games, has 8 goals, 21 assists for 29 points in the OHL. He's on the bigger side, and he's actually dropped 6 spots from last time. His offensive production has dropped off a bit as of recently, but I still think he could become a very solid defenseman at the NHL level someday. And I also think that Columbus needs to add something to their defensive group after drafting all these centermen that could also become wingers and stuff. I think that it's time they'll draft a defenseman as one of their draft picks if that draft pick doesn't get protected. Like if Chicago doesn't win the lottery, I think they'll definitely draft a defenseman. And that defenseman, in my opinion, would be Pavel Mintyukov. But moving on to number 10, a team that's desperate in goal scoring is the Islanders, and I think they will draft center/right winger listed on Elite Prospects from the USDP, Frank Nazar. Frank Nazar in 37 games has 18 goals, 27 points for 45 points. He's a bit to the shorter side, but his offensive production has been very good throughout the whole season. Back in the USHL right now, he's producing very well, and I just think Islanders are in need of that scorer. They picked up JURAJ in the second round, which is looking like a steal, and now if they can get Frank Nazar, I think that really helps them start to solidify some future in their offense. Because right now their core is getting old. They need some new young guys, especially offensemen, because their blue line isn't bad right now. It's their offensive numbers that are really low. And I think Frank Nazar could help with that problem in the future for sure. So I think Frank Nazar would be a good fit for the Islanders. But now to Detroit. I think Detroit will draft from the USDP left winger Isaac Howard. Isaac Howard puts up, again from the USDP, 37 games, 18 goals, 26 assists, 44 points. So just sort of Frank Nazar. Also a little short. These players are pretty close. He's actually moved down one from last time I had him. But that's not a lot. 10 to 11, not a jump or anything. Or not a fall or anything. But Isaac Howard, I think it's time that Detroit drafts a forward. They picked a defenseman and a goalie. And I think they just picked a lot of defense and goalies recently. And I think they got to add another forward to that forward group, because I think it just needs something else to, for them to solidify to be a contender. I think they need to add more to that forward group, whether it be through trades or free agency, but I also think they should draft another forward. And right now, I think Isaac Howard is that guy. Very solid numbers in the USDP, and I think he can bring some good offense onto that Detroit team in the future. At the number 12 spot, the Vancouver Canucks are drafting in the simulation, and I think that they will draft defenseman from the WHL, Kevin Korchinski. Kevin Korchinski in 40 games only has 4 goals, but also has 32 assists for 36 points. He's on the bigger side, and this guy, I think, goes right down Vancouver's aisle. They need a bigger defenseman on that blue line. They have a small blue line. They can make it bigger with this guy, and he also has offensive potential, which is something they desperately need. If I'm being honest, though, they really need prospects from any position, because right now they're in a weird position where they're not a playoff team, but they don't have any prospects. There are a couple teams in that boat, but I think Vancouver is the best example of that. But Kevin Korchinski could really solidify that blue line in the future with his big size and his offensive potential, maybe playing alongside Quinn Hughes. I don't know, I'm just saying stuff, but that's who I think the Vancouver who would go with at number 12. At number 13, I have another defenseman, and Winnipeg, who has I'll get to that. I think they'll draft defenseman David Jiricek from the Czechia. David Jiricek has 29 goals, or 29. I would be insane if he had 29 goals in this league. First overall, immediately. But no, in 29 games, he has 5 goals, 6 assists for 11 points. He, again, a big defenseman. He's actually moved up 2 from last time, and I know he got injured in the World Juniors, but I still think he's a very good defenseman, even though his offensive numbers have slowed down a bit. But Winnipeg desperately needs defensive prospects. They have their offense very good, but their defense is shaky, and they don't really have that defenseman, that defensive prospect to be that next top defenseman for them. And I think David Jiricek has that potential to be that guy, especially defensively. He's very sound defensively, and even if he doesn't become the offensive defenseman that maybe you'd hope for, at least he'd still be very good defensively. So that's who I think Winnipeg drafts. They need a defensive prospect. Moving on to number 14, which is actually the San Jose Sharks, and I think that they will draft centerman from the WHL, Conor GEEKIE. Conor GEEKIE has actually slipped quite a bit from the start of the year on my rankings. From the last time I did him in Christmas, he's fallen down 2 places, and this is mainly because his goal scoring has just dropped off quite a bit. He's still holding on. He's just quite over a point per game with 12 goals, 28 assists, and 40 points in 38 games. But compared to where he was early in the season, his numbers have just slowly gone down. And I'm pretty sure his brother, actually, Morgan GEEKIE, was an early first-round pick who didn't turn out well. And you know what? Maybe Conor GEEKIE will follow the same path. But you know what? There's still offensive potential there. He was viewed as one of the top guys last year. So I still think that he can be one of those guys. And with San Jose drafting William Eklund last year, they can really shore up their offensive prospects by drafting Conor GEEKIE in this draft at number 14. But moving on to Dallas. Dallas, I think, will go for left winger from the Junior 20 National League, Liam Alfgren. I'm sorry, I probably butchered that, but like it's a Swedish name. Those are hard to say. But in 21 games, he has 22 goals, 18 assists for 40 points, which is insane. Over a goal per game, basically 2 points per game, which is very good, and like a goal and assist per game. The only reason he's dropped all the way to 15 is because in the SHL in 23 games, he only has 1 goal and 1 assist for 2 points. Now, obviously, in the SHL, his ice time could be very low. There could be a lot of factors going into that. But his junior 20 league numbers are just so good. And surprisingly, he's actually only moved up 1 spot from last time. But either way, he's been fantastic in the junior league. And this could be another guy, like Jason Robertson was sort of like a second-round steal. Maybe Olgren could be like a mid-first-round steal. Because I could definitely see him turning into an amazing player offensively. Anaheim, at number 6, at the 16th overall pick, I think Anaheim will take a left winger from the Liga, JURAJ SLAVKOVSKY. This is another guy who in the comments, I didn't have him in my top 20, that's why it says new right there. They were kind of disappointed in that. And I didn't see it, and I see it a little more now. I don't think he's a top pick, but I'll have him in my top 20. Obviously at 16, on the Liga in 21 games, he only has 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points. Once again, in these leagues, ice time can play a large factor. But in the U20, he played very good with 18 points in 11 games. And really, I just think he's a decent prospect with some decent offensive potential. I think 16 is a pretty solid spot for him. Anaheim seems like a team. They're building up their offensive prospect pool. Mason McTavish is looking great. And JURAJ SLAVKOVSKY, really, he could even add more. And they even got that Sasha Pastujov. You know, they could have a really dynamic offense a couple years down the road from here. 17, we're now out of the area of draft lottery results. We're just moving on to the 17 to 20, which is what Tankathon had. And this would be kind of sad for me because 17's Edmonton, and if they're 17, that means they lost in the first round, which is really sad because I'm an Edmonton fan and I don't want that to happen. But besides that, I think Edmonton is the kind of team to take their shot at left winger from the VHL, Ivan Miroshnichenko. Very long name. In the VHL, in 31 games, he has 10 goals, 6 assists, 16 points. Decent size. He's dropped 6 spots since last time I did this. He has dropped. I still think he has that offensive potential, and Edmonton just seems like a team that's willing to take a risk like that. Sometimes they're really unpredictable in the draft, and I could see them doing something like this and taking Ivan Miroshnichenko. But he's dropped off a bit. His offensive numbers aren't as good as what you'd hope they'd be. He's one of those guys who's also seen as like one of the top 5 picks as of before the season started. But he just seems like a guy that Edmonton would be interested in, and I still believe that he has that potential. That potential's still there. I think it's just more you have to unlock it and like more of a project. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. Moving on to the 18th overall pick, which is held by LA in this case. And LA, I think they will go for a defenseman from the OHL in Ty Nelson. Ty Nelson in 42 games has 6 goals, 26 assists for 32 points. He's a little on the shorter side, and yes, he has dropped 13 spots. Now, like I said earlier, I think my draft rankings the first time were really weird. A lot of things have changed, and yes, I did have Ty Nelson in my top 5 last time. But he's dropped to 18. I feel like this is a better spot for him. This isn't necessarily because he's been playing bad. It's also because other people have just passed him. His offense has slowed down a little bit over the last 20 games, but he's been getting it back recently. And I think he's a defenseman who has that potential to be a very solid guy, which I think is something that LA needs right now. Moving on to Calgary. I think Calgary will take their shot at forward from the USDP, Jimmy Snuggerud. Jimmy Snuggerud is a forward in 37 games. He has 16 goals, 25 assists for 41 points in the USDP. He is on the bigger side, 6'2". He also has dropped a few spots. Once again, I don't think this is necessarily because he's been playing bad. It's just there's been a few changes since Christmas that I've had to make, obviously. But Snuggerud, very solid guy. USDP players can sometimes be unpredictable. Jimmy Snuggerud's another guy with offensive potential. Last year they drafted Coronado, who I think could be a really good forward one day. I really liked him last season. I was surprised he dropped as low as he did. But Snuggerud, he has fine offensive potential. I think he's a pretty solid late round late first round pick. And yeah, I think this is a guy Calgary could look out for. But moving on to 20, the last player in this. And I have Washington drafting from Slovakia, winger/centerman, Filip MESAR. Filip MESAR in 28 games has 7 goals, 7 assists for 14 points in the Slovakia League. He has not been on my list before, or at least as of last time I did this. I believe he was actually on it. He was pretty high on my list the very first time I did it, like very early in the season. And then he went off it, and now he's back. Barely clinching it with number 20. So, once again, 14 points, 28, solid totals, not amazing. Well, like, pretty good. Once again, thinks he has some offensive potential. Simon NEMEC in the same league. He's a defenseman. He has more points than MESAR as a defenseman. So that's part of the reason I'm looking at this and saying MESAR is probably a later first-round pick. Because when I see that just not only shows me that MESAR isn't quite that top potential or top like prospect, it also shows me that NEMEC is that guy. Like, he's a top 5 pick in my opinion. But Filip MESAR, very solid. I've heard he's good 2 ways. And yeah, I think that's something. I just think that's where I think he belongs, around 20th. But if you're still watching this and you have anything to say about my rankings, then please, with all due respect, you can comment, tell me down below. I got a few guys ragging on me from last time, or girls, I don't know, but people ragging on me from last time for some of my picks. And I'm sure it'll happen again, and I'm happy to hear that, and maybe take a look at a few of the guys that you think I have misplaced. But other than that, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.